everyone to tonight's Planning Commission meeting. We'll start the meeting now with a call to order. And if everyone would please rise and face the flag. If you don't have one in your office, I don't know, Jay, try to find a flag and follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, everyone. Venus, can we have roll call, please?
Yes, we can. Chair Baldino?
Here.
Vice Chair Newman?
Present.
Commissioner Wingate?
Here.
Commissioner Heschler?
I'm here.
And Commissioner Kilduff?
Here.
Thank you, Venus. Okay, next on the agenda is time for public communication. This is for anything that's not already on tonight's agenda. So if you're in the council chambers and you want to talk about the Catalyst project, I'm going to ask that you wait until we call that item on the agenda so that we can accurately reflect your comments in the record as being related to that item. So if there is anyone else in chambers who wants to address the commission on anything that's not on the agenda, now would be the time to do so. Eduardo, can you let me know if there's anyone wishing to speak?
There is no one here who wishes to speak on items that are not on the agenda.
Thank you for that. Okay, I will now close public communication. The next item on our agenda is consent calendar. We have no items there. So that means we'll skip calling the items from the consent calendars. Agenda item G is written communications. We have received several emails, written communications relating to tonight's agenda item. I want to thank everyone who has reached out to the commission to give us their thoughts and inputs. All of your emails are read by all of the commissioners and city staff. If there's anyone who would like to send an email, the best bet is for you to send it to Venus Wesson, and I'll give you her email address right now. It's vwesson, VWESSON @elsegundo.org. And if you send it to Venus, you'll make sure it's forwarded to all of the planning commissioners. Okay, that brings us to new business. We're dealing with a continued item, a public hearing on Catalyst EA 1242. This is a project located at 233 Kansas Street and 1521 East Grand Avenue. I had a conversation with the director, Sam Lee, and the city attorney today, and I was informed that the applicant has again requested to continue this item to a future planning commission meeting. As of right now, we don't have the date for when that meeting will be held. So if there's anyone watching or anyone who is in council chambers who would like to be put on the list to receive notice of this meeting, you can again email Venus Wesson at vwesson@elsegundo.org. And whenever this is re-noticed as a public hearing, you will receive an individual notification. This will be agendized and published in the paper when it's re-noticed anyway. But if you wanted a personal reminder, then again, I request that you email Venus. Now, because this item is going to be continued to a time in the future, we're not going to have a staff presentation tonight. But as I understand, there are members of the public who took time out of their day to come down to speak to us about this meeting. What I will do is I will open public communication so that the planning commissioners can listen to those residents who wanted to give comments, but we will not make any comments in response because this item is going to be continued and we have to wait until the item is before us before we can make any comments or any deliberation. However, I wanted to recognize those of you who took time out of your day to come down to speak. You are welcome to email us. You're welcome to come back when this matter is re-agendized in the future, or if you'd like to speak to us now, I will now open public communications on agenda item I1, which is the Catalyst project. Is there anyone in council chambers who would like to make public comments about this agenda item?
Chair Baldino, yes, I'm here in the council chambers and I have quite a few people here. I must have about 6 or 7 folks. And I do have 4 requests to speak to you or provide comments. So I will go ahead and call them up so that they can go ahead and provide you with direct comments. So I'll first call up Mr. Alonso Castro.
It's good.
Is he able to hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Can you mute your mic?
Hi, welcome. Tell us your name and tell us where you live.
My name is Alonso Castro, and I live in the Eland Point community here in El Segundo. Okay.
Go ahead.
Yes.
We're listening.
So, okay, great. Yes, I have lived here in El Segundo for 17 years. As I mentioned, I currently live in Eland Point community with my wife and my 9-year-old daughter. I am less than 100 feet away from the proposed development. Again, I'd like to mention that I am all for development and increasing tax revenue for the city. However, I don't believe that this project shall move forward, or at the very least, it should be delayed until work from home and school from home is over. There are a number of reasons why I feel this way. Number one, the project is requesting a 26% increase in intensity versus what is allowed in the Smoky Hollow specific plan. The Smoky Hollow specific plan and associated EIR already acknowledge potential significant emissions, noise, and traffic impacts that cannot be mitigated. Allowing a 26% increase to what was already allowed in the Smoky Hollow specific plan does not make sense, especially so close to homes. Which brings me to number 2. Smoky Hollow covers a large area and is not a monolith. There are portions of Smoky Hollow that are close to homes and other portions that are farther away from homes. I don't think variances should be granted for higher intensity projects that are so close to homes. I think higher intensity projects should be located farther from homes, with lower intensity projects closer to homes. Number 3, I believe a project-specific EIR should be done for this project, given the requested variance, the proximity to homes, and the changing conditions, namely COVID, working from home, and schooling from home. Number 4, given the land use covenant restricts this land for industrial commercial use due to soil contamination, a specific study should address the safety of nearby residents during demolition and construction. Number 5, a more careful traffic study should be conducted given that this development shares streets with residential areas, including Kansas and Holly. Number 6, if this project is approved, I don't believe this project should move forward when families are working and schooling from home. It is a large development and less than 100 feet away from many homes, including mine. The noise, the diesel fumes, the dust, the traffic are going to make working and schooling from home impossible. In summary, this project should not be approved. High intensity projects should be allowed in areas that are farther from homes. Given the proximity to homes and the fact that the increased intensity places this project outside the Smoky Hollow specific plan, a project-specific EIR should be conducted. Lastly, if the project is approved for this location, it should be delayed during the work, school from home period. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Thank you for coming down.
Okay, the second speaker, I'm going to go ahead and first clean the area there, but the next speaker will be Victor Valdez.
Good evening. Do I have to?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, Mr. Valdez.
How are you? Once again, I am Victor Valdez. I live here in the city of El Segundo. I've worked and lived in the city for over 45 years. I'm extremely concerned about this particular project. I did have the opportunity to visit the facility and look at their nice $100,000 proposed little model of how it's going to appear. But that aside, we are a community that cares about children, that cares about family, and cares about the health and welfare of our members that live here within our immediate area. They will be drastically be affected and impacted if this project is approved. Health and welfare of our citizens, of our society, of our community is extremely important. I checked recently with the Department of Toxic Substance and Control. And this particular project, though it was approved, is actually, and I'll point out a couple of really startling statistics. The soil is so contaminated and so dangerous with soil vapors, it's still even listed as under investigation through the Department of Toxic Control Substance. The two most dangerous substances that are currently affected are PCE and TCE. They have long scientific names, but these are the abbreviations. They're in the category of over 90%. It's extremely dangerous. The vapors alone. I was provided a copy of the 1,800-page report, and I scanned it and reviewed it. And they're extremely concerned about the health and welfare of not just the community, but the own workers that are go into this particular complex. I happen to have visited the city building department today for a permit for another matter. And I asked, hey, have they gotten a demolition permit? Have they gotten any type of authorizations to demolish or remove asbestos? Per the records, they did apply for a demolition back in August of this year. Well, guess what? The building's already partially dismantled. It's open to the public. You can see the doors that are still open. You can see some of the demolished structure as you pass by, which I do daily when I do my daily exercise. They even admitted to my colleague or former neighbor that they've already removed asbestos. Asbestos is one of the most carcinogenic chemicals out there today and affecting all of us in society, including you and our residents living in El Segundo. I checked with the AQMD last week. They have no record of authorization of removal of asbestos from a structure such of that magnitude. Yet it's already been admitted by their project representatives that they've already taken care of all the asbestos. Well, I can tell you for a fact that it has not been removed. When the gate was open, and it's still open and unlocked, I was trying to locate somebody for purposes of emergency to properly secure it, and you can see that the asbestos is still wrapped around the pipes. So that's rather dangerous and very questionable. Again, my purpose is to allow our planning commission to really evaluate the importance of another commercial project being built in a residential community, especially with the soil contamination as dangerous that it is. They've even rated this particular project and placed it into the 98% category of danger for a residential community. And this is in the Department of Toxic Control Substance. I'll read it to you. The indicators as calculated by considering the number of permitted treatment storage facilities and hazardous waste. The tract either contains nearby 9 hazardous waste predict generators and 2 TSDF hazardous waste percentile in the census tract of 98%, meaning the number and type of hazardous waste generated at this site is higher than 98% of the census tracts in California. What is going on here in our community? We need to protect the young people of our community, the residents, the people that are your neighbors that have called you and discussed this matter with you. This shouldn't be a done deal, as was explained to me. The pollution burden percentile, 90%. Air quality PM, 82%. Diesel particulate matter, 91%. And on and on and on. Cleanup site, 93%. All these are highly questionable issues that need to be addressed. There are a variety. This particular document is over 1,800 pages that they provided to me, that they paid some company to evaluate and determine the suitability of this particular project. A scientist has to have the ability to read this data and understand it. But the bottom line is, the community is against this particular project. It needs to be reevaluated and considered for something else, especially with the pollution and environment being an important health and safety factor within our community. Again, I'd like to thank you again for listening to my presentation today, and I hope you listen to what I have made mention of today. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Valdez.
All right.
I had a couple of new speaker slips as the speaker was speaking. But our next speaker will be John Power.
I don't think it came across, but we couldn't hear you.
Oh, sorry, John Power.
Good job.
You may not have seen this all, but this is the Smoky Hollow environmental report. And I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a very generic report that doesn't go into the depth of what needs to be done, as it's just a report. But that being said, I'm John Power, and I live right across the street from said development on Kansas Street. I'll omit some of the obvious that has been said by Victor and Alfonso, but some of the things I really wanted to point out is that there's going to be tremendous liability from this whole project. Even today, I noticed that there is wind bringing all sorts of shingles and other debris from the project right onto my front lawn. I have pictures of it, but I'll omit the pictures. I think more than anything, the point to be making to the board and anybody in El Segundo is the remediation and the cleanup that not only is going to be required, but if it doesn't, there's tremendous liability ahead for this whole thing. With that, omitting some of the obvious from what Victor had said, we have an opportunity here in El Segundo to kind of break the norm and put some residential instead of 8 office buildings in that particular location, if in fact it gets remediated and certified by the state. With that, as being involved in development myself, 11 homes and 11 on the back street would be 22 homes if you were to put a residential construction project there, which would be what I would think would be a much better suit if in fact and when the whole project gets remediated. That being said, Alfonso, as he had stated, it's a great idea to table the whole issue because of stay at home and the fact that there's so many people there. This has to be looked at more carefully, if you ask me. That's what I would think of on the board. And to take that even a step further, I would have them carefully look at not just automatically giving the developer office ability, which brings in many, many, many more cars, as well as I think Andy is here, who's Manhattan Beach Police, can talk about the amount of crime that comes through with office leasing and the number of people there. Right now, Kansas already is very busy with traffic, not to mention the parking. And someday I would think and even hope that if in fact things go forward, whatever is decided, something could be done to stop the transient parking that's there every day. At times I can't even park in front of my own house. So those are some of the superlatives that haven't been said. But more than anything, I would go back to the basic beliefs of what El Segundo has stated, and that is being a residential neighborhood. That's your main topic of what El Segundo really is all about. So if there's an opportunity to do something with this particular block of property, I would say the very best thing you do is to put residences there. You could start at $1.5 to $2 million per home. You could get 22 homes on there, and you could get gross $40 million. And what a wonderful thing to add to El Segundo, if in fact and when the remediation takes place. I digress. Andy? Is that it?
Thank you,
Thanks.
Mr. Powers.
Okay, while we have that cleansed, the next speaker will be Joe Delmendo. No, they do see him on there.
Do this. Nah, it's Zoom, so the last person, this person communicates with, this person they're gonna you're good to go.
Yep. Good to go.
Hello, welcome. Yeah, you're good to go. Just tell us your name, please.
All right.
Good afternoon or
Go
evening,
ahead, sir.
My name's Joe Delmendo. I live on the corner of Kansas and Grand. I'm here to support everything pretty much that's already said. I'm actually in support of residential being put in for some of those effects that have already been touched upon, pretty much. Didn't really want to add anything else. That's pretty much it.
Thank you, Mr. Delmendo.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the next speaker will be Nancy Brunson Veloz.
The public speaker is muted. Can someone unmute public communications, please?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you. Welcome. Tell us your name, and we'd like to hear your comments, please.
Thank you. My name is Nancy Brunson Veloz. I am a 25-year resident of El Segundo on Washington Street on the 400 block. By El Segundo standards, that is not a very long time, but it does feel like a long time to us. I am an engineer by education and trade, so I could understand and was reading some of the documentation, and there's just a couple of issues I'd like to bring up. I am not nearly as organized as I'd like to be this evening based on my first point of the lack of communication. This was actually brought to our attention because our neighbors talk to each other. And we happened to be out for a walk, and we happened to hear one of my neighbors on Kansas Street had at least had a notification that this was going on. My main concern is that there's two aspects to this project. There's the north side of Grand and the south side of Grand. The south side of Grand being the traditional Smoky Holly area, and that has its own concerns. My main concern is with the north side of Grand, and from what I can tell from the documentation, they're proposing a 6-story parking structure on that corner of Grand and Kansas. 6-story parking structures equivalent to the parking structures that are at the high rises at the corner of Sepulveda and El Segundo Boulevard. First of all, the size of the structure, which is, taking away half the sun for those people that are living on that end of the street. The size of the structure bringing the volume of cars. Some of the reports that I saw, an extra 500 trips per rush hour peak period. 500 cars getting through the lights at El Segundo Boulevard is one thing. They have to make a left turn onto El Segundo Boulevard to get out of the area of Smoky Hollow. And that has its own challenges of traffic accidents because there's no light there. Second of all is the traffic on Grand itself and the number of number of lights that 500 cars would have to get get through that time. I made an estimation of probably 45 cars per light every 3 minutes at rush hour. That puts a lot of traffic. We don't have local current information because since we've all been home since COVID, our traffic patterns have changed drastically. But prior to COVID, which brings up to my third point, prior to COVID, traffic on Mariposa. We live in the day of Waze. Those 500 cars exiting that parking structure are going to use every available residential street to alleviate their traffic time, which means that they'll try to go through Kansas and Washington, maybe Indiana, to get to Mariposa. Mariposa pre-COVID, there were times where it would take you 2 and 3 lights to get through when traffic was backed up to get onto Sepulveda. I read in the reports they did do an environmental impact for the traffic on the freeways. Traffic on the freeways getting onto that on-ramp on the 105, 4 out of 5 days is solid backed up because of traffic on the 105. So now all that traffic is backing up onto Sepulveda, getting through Sepulveda and Imperial. So there's a lot of considerations there that I could not find in my perusal of the environmental impact that they had taken into consideration. Definitely the toxicity of the site. In order to put a 6-story parking structure on that site, they're going to have to be excavating dirt. So I've heard from my co-citizens this evening about the toxicity of the asbestos and demolishing the building, but the toxicity of the soil too. I've been involved in tech companies where there's been soil. I haven't seen any soil reports and I can't find it in the environmental impact. But toxicity of that from an electronics company having to excavate so that they can build a 6-story structure is putting a lot of those people at risk. One of my fellow citizens also talked about the crime on Holly, the crime on Pine. I mean, I had a neighbor who recently moved out of the corner of Washington and Holly, and he had to put a light up on the side of his house in order for to help arrest some of the crime that was happening on Holly behind Jim and Jack's. So now if you have a parking structure, there's that much less people and a lot less lighting so that there are a possibility of more crime. My neighbor just had a one street over on Pine. It's bringing in crime to the area that they're going after catalytic converters. Now we have all this stuff going on in the city. So it's another one. I think that was, and the one last comment I'd like to make is, without having hours and hours to review every single document that I could find, and I only heard about it this afternoon, there were a couple of responses in the environmental impact, and there were 3 categories that were deemed to be worse than that. It was, at an unacceptable level. One was noise, one was the toxicity, and the other was the traffic. And the response to all 3 of those things that were deemed to be excessive in this new proposal, the response was, well, there's nothing they can do about it, so we're just going to go ahead and do it. Or we should just go ahead and approve it. And I felt that that was not the right answer. And I just thought of one more thing. The traffic back to the traffic problem for a minute there, they also talked about that there was no remediation or mitigation plans for the traffic on Sepulveda, or PCH as it's now called, and that any remediation for, I think they called it level of service, or LOS, that for right turn lanes on Sepulveda, that all that would be then at the city having to petition Caltrans after the fact. And I'm afraid that any of those changes that would need to be made to the city streets would come back to the city of El Segundo having to at least pay half of that remediation, and that's coming back to the taxpayers. So without having taxpayer review of this ahead of time, we would be stuck with traffic until there was any kind of remediation subject. So I'm sorry for jumping all over the place, but this was very much a surprise and very much a concern to the people in that area. Oh, and then one last thing, what they're calling the Smoky Holly East or North part, the part that is actually north of Grand Boulevard, Grand Avenue, yes. That has actually changed. I can understand how 20 years ago it was very much a part of Smoky Holly and the small industrial buildings that were there. But with the advent of Elon Point and all the housing there on the corner, that should not be under the same prospects or have the same kind of review as the traditional Smoky Hollywood, based on the number of based on the new residents that are in the area. So thank you for listening, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you for your comments.
I have one last speaker request card, and that is from Andrew Herod.
The public speaker is muted. Eduardo, can we unmute public communications, please?
Good.
Now we can hear you, sir. Thank you for coming. Tell us your name and where you live, please.
Thank you for your patience. My name's Andrew Herrick. I live at 339 Kansas Street, just adjacent to the project. I've lived there for the last 15 years, and I've got some concerns very, very similar to what some of our other neighbors have brought forth to the commission. But I implore you to please go slow and listen to some of the neighbors' concerns, because once this project moves forward, it's going to impact the neighborhood for decades to come, long after you've left, long after you've retired, and your mark will be left by how you evaluate this project that's coming up. Let me just begin. This building is going to be a large complex, larger than what we're used to right now. And I believe during it's my perception that during the peak of International Rectifier, they only had about 200 people working there. And then of course it dwindled down from there. So that was a big impact. There was a lot of cars on the street. There was a lot of traffic on the street. In addition, that's going to bring an awful lot of people to the neighborhood. There's going to be an additional hundreds of people that will be impacting the neighborhood, invading the neighborhood, and bringing their daily activities to the neighborhood. There's a small neighborhood park that's across the street, and that park's used by families with small children, and it'll continue to be used by families with small children. And the city does a fantastic job with keeping it clean, keeping it groomed, My concern is what use is that park going to turn into? What is it going to happen? Is it going to be a neighborhood parking, or is it going to be a park where all the workers invade it for their lunch hour? There's an awful lot of people that are going to be coming to this neighborhood. The neighborhood is not designed, in my opinion, is not designed for this amount of impact. It wasn't never designed for that. International Rectifier did not impact the neighborhood like this complex is going to impact the neighborhood. 500 hectare vehicles using our streets is going to be a major impact. I don't know, I haven't had an opportunity to see if there's a traffic plan, but that concerns me, where the traffic's going to come in and where they're going to leave, and how they're going to impact all of the small streets, the signal, and also all the stop signs. At the corner now, there's not many people that come to full stops. And we come to realize that that's just a way of life. But this is going to impact us tremendously with additional 500 cars. Also, I'm just concerned about the demolition. Some of those buildings have been there since World War II or around that era, and how the demolition is going to impact the families that live adjacent to all of this demolition that's going to be going on. And how is that going to impact some of the people, some of the elderly people, some of the young people who live there, and how is that going to impact their lives? And the truck traffic plan, if you approve the building and it goes forward, what type of truck traffic is going to be there? You're going to have an infrastructure that has to be fed. And that means, what I mean by that is you're going to have delivery trucks coming there. Where are they going to go? How are they going to park? How are they going to impact our neighborhoods when people are walking their dogs, walking their children, going to the various parks in the area? The other issue that I want to bring forward to the commissioners also is the calls for service. As you know, when you build any facility, calls for service for public safety is going to increase. Whether someone doesn't like the way a person's looking at them at the park, or how they're parking on the street, or not parking correctly, going through the stop signs, impacting the traffic as they drive to and from work. Those calls for service are going to impact our already burdened police and fire department. They're trying to take care of the whole city and do the best job they can and do a fantastic job. I'm proud to say that I'm a resident of El Segundo, and our public servants are absolutely fantastic. That's why I choose to live here, because of the services they provide. And commissioners, the way you listen and the job that you take on to try to do the right thing. So I encourage you to do the right thing and listen to the concerns of our citizens before we do something that's going to impact us for the next 20 years, 30 years, whenever that building is removed. Long after commissioners, that you're gone from your assignments and retired and may not even live in El Segundo anymore. So please listen to what we're trying to say. I encourage you to do that. And I thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to us, and have a good night.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Eduardo, are there any other?
That is all the speaker slips I have.
I would like to say we do have parties in the lobby and here are supporters of what people spoke. I'd like to bring that to your attention.
Right, and just again to reiterate what I said before, we do have quite a few people here in the chambers and outside watching, but those were the folks that did submit speaker slips, and barring anyone else who wishes to speak, I think we're good here in the chambers.
Okay, so last call, if there's anyone there who wishes to make comments to the Planning Commission, let Eduardo know. All right, I will now close public communications. I want to thank everyone who took time out to come speak to the commission about this item. But as I stated earlier in the meeting, this item will not be discussed tonight. It is going to be continued to a planning commission in the future, and we do not know the date of that next meeting yet. So you will receive, these will be posted in the Herald, but again, if you want to have personal notification of when this item will be agendized and when we'll be able to address your concerns and answer your questions, please email Venus Wesson at vwesson@elsegundo.org. And with that, I will make a motion to continue the item of the Catalyst EA 1242, which is the project located at 233 Kansas Street and 1521 East Grand Avenue, to a planning commission meeting to be scheduled in the future. And can I have a second for that motion, please?
Second. I
So we have a
second.
motion. Thank you, Carol. Motion and a second. And Venus, can we have a roll call vote?
Yes, we can. Chair Baldino,
Aye.
Vice Chair Newman,
Yes.
Commissioner Wingate,
Yes.
Commissioner Kilduff. You're muted.
Sorry. Yes.
Okay. And Commissioner Heschler.
Yes, I,
Thank you.
All right, that has been continued. The city will provide notice of that new date once we determine when this item will be ready for us to discuss and deliberate on. The next item on our agenda tonight is a report from Planning Building Safety Director. Sam, do you have a report?
Yes, I don't have anything to report tonight.
Okay, that brings us to our next item, which is an update on the accessory dwelling units within the city of El Segundo. Do we have a staff report on that?
I can go ahead and just give a real brief update. This is coming to you at the request of the commission at the last meeting, who wanted to get some information on the ADUs, number of ADUs that have been issued and applied for, and also finalized. So there is a table in there. Since inception of the allowing the ADUs to be constructed in town, a lot of that emanating from the state. We've had a total of 70 requests to construct ADUs. Out of those 70, there's actually been 43 permits that have been issued, and total 8. Yeah, so, and of those that have been requested, we've had a total of 47 new ADUs and 23 conversions into ADUs, which that could be anywhere from playrooms to garages that have been converted to ADUs. So again, we've had a total of 70 requests, and of those 70, actually 43 permits have been issued for ADUs. So with that, that just concludes my summary.
Did I misunderstand something? I thought I heard 43 permits and 47 new. What does that mean? 47 new what?
So 47 new is actual new ADUs, new construction.
But there's only 43
Actually
permits.
built from the ground up.
So there's 43 permits and 47 new buildings?
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you. Let me.
So there's 43 permits and 47 new buildings?
There's 47 requests. So we've had 70 people apply for actual permits. And of those 70 that have applied, there's been 43 that have been issued. And I guess I should, in hindsight, being 2020, I should have, and I apologize for this, I should have actually broken down the permits that have been issued between new versus conversion. So I apologize for that, but I can clarify that in the next meeting if you'd like.
Please.
Okay, any other questions for Eduardo? Thank you for the report and the information, Eduardo. No other questions?
Not on that.
Okay. Well,
Well, there would be questions, but Eduardo's going to come back to the next meeting and clarify it. I think, Carol, to your question, if you've got 43 permits that have been issued, but you have 47 new ADU dwellings and 23 conversions, and yet you have 70 applicants, but only 43 have been issued permits, how the numbers don't quite add up. And I think that's probably what you need to break down a little bit more for us, Eduardo. That's all.
Yes, I apologize for that. I'll try to clarify, provide a better table for you on that.
Thank you.
No worries. Thanks.
All right. The next item on our agenda is planning commissioner comments. Any commission comments this evening?
It's nice to see everybody again.
Good to be seen. I
It
did
is good to
have,
be seen.
it's good to be seen. I had something that I wanted to ask staff and I guess potentially the city attorney, but I don't know, David's not on tonight, right? No, okay. It's about, so Governor Newsom in September signed 15 housing bills into legislation, and they're all aimed at increasing productivity and some level of affordability. And I was wondering if, and it seems like it would be the attorney, somebody could give a synopsis on those, particularly any that we feel like impact El Segundo in particular.
So, Michelle, were
This
these
is Greg.
Yeah, what's that?
were these
Sorry,
executive
Ryan.
orders or were these like bills that were passed?
There are bills that were passed that he
Okay.
actually signed into. Yeah, not executive
Okay.
order, sorry.
Yeah,
You
we
just-
do have Greg, city attorney's office with us.
Hi, Greg. Sorry, I see your
Hi,
name.
how are you?
Good.
Yeah, I can take a look at that and try and have something written up to pass out to you by the next meeting.
Okay, that would be great.
Perfect.
Thank you, Greg.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other comments from planning commissioners?
I just want to say thank you to the residents who came out and spoke tonight. I know we're not talking about that tonight, but it's nice to see that people are aware and paying attention, and I look forward to that conversation.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree, Jay. Again, if anyone wants to email the planning commissioners and put your thoughts down in writing, we're happy to read those. Just email vwesson@elsegundo.org. Unless there's any other comments, the next item is adjournment, and this meeting will be adjourned. Our next meeting is scheduled for December 10th, 2020 at 5:30. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
You
Stay
too.
well.
Good night. Thank you, Ryan.
Not everybody.
Thank
All right.
you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, Venus.
Bye.